Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here, and today we're going to be discussing the fact that Bethesda has actually made a correct decision for maybe the first time in all of 2018. So, as you know, a couple of days ago I put out a video discussing the fact that Bethesda had shipped cheap nylon duffel bags in place of the canvas duffel bags that were promised the customers who paid for the $200 collector's edition of Fallout 76. And of course, many of those customers were rightfully upset that they were sold a big fat bill of lies. And this was blatant false advertisement, so my guess is that since Bethesda has decided now to reverse that decision and ship out the canvas bags when available, that probably the lawyer stepped in and said, "Hey guys, what do you think you're doing here? You're opening yourself up to some potential legal action for false advertisement." And so Bethesda has now put out a tweet that lets us know that if you submit a ticket to the page, I'm going to flash this on the screen right here. If you go to this link and you submit a ticket for proof that you have purchased the collector's edition, they will be happy to send you a canvas duffel bag when they're available, of course. Now, why they didn't just come out and notify all the customers that had purchased this originally via email saying, "Hey, we're going to ship this out to you now so you can get the game in your hands, and then we're having trouble acquiring these bags that you bought, and we're going to ship them to you at a later date." So now they're going to have to do that anyway, and instead they got another big old public relations black eye, which was completely unnecessary. And this brings me back to the topic I discussed the other day. And unfortunately, I'm going to talk once again about Pete Hines. Because the fact that every gaming channel and all of the media sites are making fun of Bethesda because of a nylon duffel bag just is further proof of how badly they have botched the public relations with their fan base in 2018. Now, this goes beyond just the game Fallout 76 itself. This goes far beyond that. And this goes to something I discussed in my last game, is it time for Pete Hines to step down? Because why is it in the games industry that no one can ever seem to lose their job, or if it's some tragedy beyond belief, like when Kojima and Konami parted ways? It just became, international problems because of Kojima. And now, granted, Konami was probably in the wrong in that situation, but why is it that everyone just has a lifetime pass to do a terrible job and still keep their jobs? It seems like no one ever loses their job. And it's not easy to call for someone's job, but let's look at some of the other facts besides just the terrible public relations from Pete Hines and his team from this year. It has been mistake after mistake made from the public relations standpoint. And so there's just a couple ideas I want to throw you guys. Some stuff that I've been thinking about, and let me know what you guys think about this, because I want to look at this from a strictly PR standpoint. Because when you think about the title of Vice President of Public Relations and Vice President of Marketing, and you look at Pete Hines and the way he talks to people on Twitter and the way he responds to fans and the smug answers that he gives people and the things he says to media members in interviews, that, the sly wink that he gives them, like, these fans, these stupid fans. It's clear from his comments that he really despises the players. He has no use for us as players. The only time he flashes that grin is when he's up on stage at E3. The rest of the time, he's on Twitter giving his snarky comments, letting everyone know he doesn't care about the lore. He doesn't have time to deal with this. He doesn't have time to deal with that. How exactly is a guy who hates the public this much the head of public relations? That just makes no earthly sense to me. Does it make sense to you? Because it seems unbelievably counterproductive to have your head of public relations hate the public. It makes no sense. Now, I know the games press loves him. All the media types love him because he gives them fun sound bites and he provides them with interviews, provided they stay on Bethesda's good side. But Pete has no use for us, the people who pay the bills. He only has use for the people that he can schmooze and use as useful idiots, which is what he does to a T, because they all praise him. Anytime you hear about Bethesda, All of the media types always praise Pete Hines, Todd Howard. Oh, they're so forthcoming. You get a lot of info out of Pete. You get a lot of BS out of Pete, is what you get. But the media types act like he spins them solid truth gold. And it's ridiculous. But that's one thing I wanted you to think about. Why does Pete Hines hate the public so much, yet he's the head of public relations and marketing? And now, let's go into something a little bit deeper. Let's go into the business end of things. This is something from a business standpoint that needs to get pointed out that I haven't heard anyone discussing, and I'm going to bring it up here. This year, we saw Bethesda Softworks, as the publisher, pump a lot of money into promoting Fallout 76. They had promotions with Ninja, who's a Fortnite streamer, and they got the guy who does Rick and Morty in there to do a promotional stream, and they had athletes from across the world doing international promotions. I think there was a UFC promotion that they did, just trying to draw in all sorts of people that aren't really typical Bethesda demographics, you might not think. And they spent all this money on marketing, a lot of TV ads, a lot of YouTube ads, advertisement on all the mainstream media sites. They sunk all this money into the marketing. And we don't really know exactly if the game sold well or not, at least. I'm sure it sold a few million copies at least, but not even close to what they would have wanted, I'm sure, because we would have heard about it if they had actually sold Fallout 76 at a decent clip at all. But we know that Fallout 76 got terrible, terrible reviews, yet they sunk all this money into a game that, if they were being objective, as both a publisher and a developer, Bethesda should have known that this game was a dud. If they truly didn't know that this was going to be a dud, then they're in worse shape than we think. Because if they in-house couldn't recognize Fallout 76 for what it truly was, I know you could say that they were cynical and putting out a cash grab, and they didn't really care what they were putting out. But if they truly thought that this was going to be a top quality product, then they are in much bigger trouble than I thought. But if, knowing this game was a dud, they still decided to sink all of those resources into promoting this game, and just all these weird ad campaigns with demographics that just don't make much sense, then why would they sink all those resources in? When you look at the past list for the last few years of game releases for Bethesda Softworks from the other game studios, and what you're going to find is a list of very well-reviewed games that didn't sell at all. Now, which games am I talking about? I'm talking about Dishonored 2, which has an 88 Metacritic rating and only sold a couple of million copies. Did not sell very well at all. And we know that a lot of times the sequel to an already popular franchise, which Dishonored was a pretty well-known and well-respected franchise already, the sequel to these games usually well outsell the first game and make a big mark in the market. Yet Dishonored 2 did not sell well despite having an 88 Metacritic score, which, by the way, is higher than Marvel's Spider-Man, which is widely regarded as being a very, very good game and sold huge numbers. So why is this game, Dishonored 2, that got better scores? Why was this not marketed better? Why did this not sell? Pete Hines is the head of marketing. Why did this game that got great reviews not sell? Let's look at another game, Wolfenstein 2. This game has an 87 Metacritic score. It's also very high. Higher than some of the last couple Bethesda Game Studios games, that's for sure. Where was the marketing on that, Pete? Why couldn't you sell that game? That game didn't sell very well either. Once again, just a couple million copies for a game that reviewed very well and the fans liked. It's up for some awards. Why did that game not sell, Pete? You're the head of marketing. Yet that was another commercial failure. Let's look at Prey from last year. That game has a Metacritic score in the high 70s, mid 80s, depending on what platform you're playing on. It goes up to 84 on Xbox. It's in the high 70s on PlayStation. That was a game that, once again, fans liked, critics liked. barely sold. I don't even think it sold 2 million copies. Now I might be wrong about these figures, but it certainly didn't light the world on fire. This is another game, pretty well reviewed, didn't sell. Pete, why didn't that game sell? Why didn't you put more money into the marketing for these games? You are in charge of publishing these games, are you not? You are the head of Bethesda Softworks marketing. What about The Evil Within 2? That's another game. Commercial failure. Yet a game that, once again, if you look at the score on all platforms, it's going to be about an 80 Metacritic score through the aggregate on all three platforms. So once again, a game that was... And actually the user scores for that game are really high, like in the 9s. So why is it that these games didn't sell? Pete Hines, you're the head of marketing. What's up with that? I don't know. I mean, I don't have your job. Must be tough to try to promote an obviously terrible game like Fallout 76, but you had all these other good games, solid games, in just the last couple of years that didn't sell. Why not? Something to think about. Anyway, I'm Coach Toolshed. I'm going to let you guys go with yet another disconnect because I can't play this game without getting a disconnect. Hopefully that big patch tomorrow is going to fix everything. Right, guys? I'm sure. Anyway, just something to chew on. Once again, I know it's not... I don't like throwing it out there where, someone needs to step down from their job. But at this point, what is Pete Hines doing? He's not the reason why people bought Bethesda games in the past. He's not. It was the games. It was never Pete Hines. I know his ego won't let him admit that, but that's the truth. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go after that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you want to stay in tune with the channel headed forward, and as always, keep it turned to 11.